The footage of Mike Tyson gasping for air and calling for help during the final moments of his fight with Jake Paul is not just a snippet of a match, it's a portrait of a man wrestling with his limits. Tyson wasn't just tired, he was utterly depleted. His corner could be heard urging him to give more, to dig deeper, to find something within himself, but there was nothing left. His body had given all it could, and his mind, once a fortress of unrelenting willpower, seemed to be searching for an answer that didn't exist.
To see him so old, Roy Jones Jr. kept saying it, man, those legs aren't working. It was really hard to see. He really sold it, with the highlight videos of him training and his physique. I wish he wouldn't have showed us his ass.
This was the rawest version of Tyson that anyone had ever seen. Over the years, fans have watched him as the ferocious force who decimated his opponents with frightening efficiency. This footage, however, presented a man whose mythos had been peeled away, revealing the vulnerable human beneath. It wasn't about failure or weakness, it was about honesty. He was 58 years old, facing an opponent more than 2 decades younger, and yet he refused to quit. That's what the footage really captured. Not a broken man, but one who was determined to keep going, even when his body was screaming for him to stop.
So Jake, how did you think the fight went?
I knew I was gonna win from the start. He might not. I'm just in my prime. I have all the money, all the time in the world. I'm young. I'm the best. I'm the strongest. I'm the Smee. Come on, I'm the Paul. Come on, Jake Pauler. Come on now. It's one of those things where I knew I was going from the start. Yeah.
Tyson's labored breathing wasn't just a sign of physical fatigue, it symbolized the weight of everything he carried into that ring. The years of being a symbol of power, the expectation to perform as Iron Mike, the grueling training he had endured, and the psychological strain of knowing that this fight could be his last. All of it culminated in that corner moment. He was out of breath, yes, but he was also out of time. The footage reminds us that even the greatest athletes are still human. They feel pain, they hit their limits, and they face moments when their bodies simply cannot deliver what their minds demand.
27, and he was 58. How would that fight end?
Well, I would never fight a 58-year-old man. I was 27.
For fans, seeing Tyson in this state was shocking. It wasn't the Hollywood ending they might have imagined for his career, but in many ways it was more powerful than any victory. It showed his heart, his perseverance, and his refusal to quit, even when every muscle in his body begged him to. That's why this footage resonates. It's not about Tyson failing, it's about Tyson fighting until he had nothing left.
Start to take your foot off the gas just a little bit because you noticed he was tiring out?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a bit. I wanted to give the fans a show, but I didn't want to hurt someone that didn't need to be hurt.
Did you feel Mike's power at all?
No.
He hit you with one, and you gave him the tongue.
I only because the crowd got turned up, but it didn't actually.
Mike Tyson stepping into the ring at 58 years old was already a headline-worthy event, but the story behind his preparation for this fight takes it to an entirely different level. Tyson later revealed that his training camp was so grueling and physically taxing that he nearly lost his life in the process. Let that sink in. A man in his late 50s who had already endured decades of punishing physical strain in one of the most brutal sports in the world pushed himself to the brink of death just to prepare for a fight. This wasn't about money or fame. This was about pride, about proving something to himself and to the world.
I thought Jake Paul had every intention of walking into the ring and trying to do something spectacular. As a guy that was 31 years Mike Tyson's junior, Mike Tyson's 58, Jake Paul is 27. He was thinking about knocking Mike Tyson out. I think that when he saw Mike Tyson introduced, when Mike Tyson stumbled walking into the ring, he looked unsteady. When he had a knee brace on his right knee and he walked into the ring and he saw Mike Tyson, saw how old he looked, saw how slow he appeared, etc. I think that Jake Paul said,
training for a fight is brutal under the best of circumstances. For someone Tyson's age, it's a battle against the clock. The human body naturally slows down as it ages. Reflexes dull, recovery takes longer, and injuries become harder to heal. Tyson wasn't just training to fight, he was training against nature itself. Every morning he got out of bed, he was stepping into a war with his own limitations. The fact that he even made it to the fight speaks volumes about his determination.
And that was really if Mike just flatlined Jake. Otherwise, it's that lose-lose situation that we're kind of currently in for Jake, that he wasn't able to stop Mike, even if it is because he didn't want to toward the end there. Early on, he was throwing punches with the intent to hurt Mike. I don't care what you say. Those were heavy punches. And also, he was fighting a 58-year-old. So again, it's that lose-lose where, yes, he won the fight, but in public perception, there's so much to mock him for.
When you look at the fight through this lens, Tyson's performance becomes even more extraordinary. Yes, he was slower than he used to be. Yes, he struggled to keep up at times, but he was a 58-year-old man who had almost died just months earlier, standing toe-to-toe with someone half his age. That's not just impressive, it's downright heroic. After the fight, Paul made comments suggesting that Tyson wasn't trying, that he wasn't throwing enough punches, and that he didn't put up enough of a fight. For anyone who knows the context, these comments are not just disrespectful, they're ignorant. Paul didn't see the man who had survived a near-fatal training camp to get to that ring. He saw an opportunity to boost his own ego by diminishing Tyson's performance. What Paul failed to grasp is that Tyson's very presence in that ring was a victory in itself. His resilience, his refusal to quit, his willingness to put his body on the line one last time, all of that deserves respect, not ridicule.
As well. He calls himself a pro boxer. So let's look at what he's done. He's tried the MMA. He's been in there with Nate Diaz. He's been in there with Anderson Silva. He's got the wins, albeit in messy, horrible fights, but he's got the wins. These guys don't belong in a boxing ring. They're old men. They struggled bad. And Jake Paul got the win. In my opinion, in terrible looking, horrible fights that weren't really watchable. They weren't competitive. He's also tried to be a professional boxer by jumping in with Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury's, I'm not giving him stick, but he wouldn't win a British title at light heavyweight. He's not of that level. So he's a novice professional, and he beat Jake Paul. Don't forget, he actually beat Jake Paul. All right, it was quite a close fight, but it was
Jake Paul's post-fight behavior was, in many ways, predictable. He's built his career on self-promotion, on hyping himself up and playing the role of the brash underdog turned superstar, but his comments after the fight with Tyson crossed a line. Paul claimed that he had given Tyson a boxing lesson, that he had dominated the fight, and that Tyson wasn't even trying. These statements weren't just inaccurate, they were insulting to a man who had accomplished more in boxing than Paul could ever dream of.
He actually outboxed the boxer. Jake Paul outboxed Mike Tyson like he said he was going to do. Did you not? Like every single round.
No, and yeah, like what do people say? Like I told everyone what I was going to do is to give him a...
Sharing the ring with a legend like Tyson should have been a humbling experience for Paul. It should have been an opportunity to show respect, to acknowledge the significance of fighting someone who helped define the sport. Instead, Paul used the fight as a platform to inflate his own ego. He ignored the context, dismissed Tyson's struggles, and acted as if he had accomplished something extraordinary. The truth is, Paul's inability to knock out an aging, injured Tyson says more about his shortcomings than it does about his abilities. Paul's post-fight behavior was a missed opportunity. He could have gained respect by showing humility, by recognizing what Tyson had gone through to step into that ring. Instead, he chose arrogance, turning what could have been a meaningful moment into yet another spectacle of self-promotion.
I tried to give the fight the best fight I possibly could, but when someone's just surviving in the ring, basically, it's hard to make it exciting. So I couldn't really get him to engage me or slip shots and, you know, do something super cool or whatever. But I don't care about what people have to say. They're always going to have something to say, and that it is what it is.
The only way that people would have been happy is if Jake lost somehow, right? And that would have been like, oh, what a great fight, Mike.
When Mike Tyson stepped into the ring against Jake Paul, the world was expecting an aged but still fierce fighter. What they didn't anticipate was seeing a man struggling physically before the first punch was even thrown. From the moment Tyson made his way into the ring, it was evident something was wrong. His knee buckled visibly during his entrance, a moment that many might have brushed off initially. But as the fight unfolded, the extent of his injury became painfully clear. Boxing is not just about throwing punches, it's about movement. Footwork is everything. A boxer's power starts from their feet, travels up through their legs, and explodes through their fists. For Tyson, whose signature style relied on explosive movement, balance, and generating force from his legs, a knee injury was devastating. Without full mobility, Tyson's legendary ability to weave, duck, and counter was severely compromised. He was essentially fighting at a fraction of his usual capability.
The first 3 rounds to go slow, let him sort of tire himself out, jab, move, staying on the outside, drop in some shots when I could, but
to let him get tired so that he wasn't as dangerous, and that's sort of exactly what I did. And basically by the third round, you know, I was in control of the fight because he was frustrated. He was hard to hit. Like the slipperiness of those.
This wasn't a case of a fighter losing because they were outmatched. Tyson's knee rendered him unable to perform basic boxing maneuvers. His unsteady stance and limited mobility meant he was an easy target, unable to avoid punches or create effective angles for counterattacks. Watching Tyson struggle with such a fundamental aspect of his craft was tough for fans who remember the lightning-fast footwork and crushing power of his prime. Tyson's decision to fight despite the injury speaks volumes about his character. Many fighters would have withdrawn or postponed the match, citing the injury as a valid reason, but not Tyson. He didn't want excuses and he didn't want pity. He wanted to finish what he started, even if it meant stepping into the ring at a massive disadvantage. This wasn't just a boxing match for Tyson, it was a statement about his resilience.
58 years old, he's 31 years older than me. I know I can take him. I don't need to do this. And for those who would question it, I will remind y'all that there have been moments in boxing where we've seen fighters exercising compassion. I remember when Larry Holmes reportedly cried because of how he was beating up on Muhammad Ali, praying that he wouldn't get up. He wouldn't get up and he wouldn't come out to fight.
Jake Paul's inability to dominate Tyson, even under these circumstances, casts a shadow over his performance. Paul was facing an injured fighter, one who was decades older and dealing with physical limitations. A younger, more skilled opponent should have capitalized on this. Yet Paul struggled to do so, failing to knock Tyson out or even fully control the fight. For all his post-fight bravado, Paul's inability to put away a compromised Tyson undermines his claims of superiority. Dana White, known for his sharp insights and candid opinions, added an intriguing perspective to the fight. According to White, Tyson went into the match fully aware that Jake Paul wouldn't be able to knock him out. Tyson's confidence wasn't misplaced. It was rooted in his understanding of the game and his opponent. He knew that Paul, for all his youthful energy and confidence, lacked the experience and skill to deliver a knockout blow against someone as seasoned as Tyson.
60 years old. He's like, you honestly think this fucking kid's gonna do anything to me? He's not good. He's not gonna fucking knock me out. He's not gonna do this. And you saw him, he tripped when he was walking down the thing. He had a hard time walking up the stairs. He had a knee brace on. And Jake Paul couldn't do anything to him.
White's remarks also highlight Tyson's business acumen. This fight wasn't just about competition, it was a calculated move to generate attention and revenue. The fight drew massive pay-per-view numbers, capturing the curiosity of both die-hard boxing fans and casual viewers. Tyson understood the entertainment value of stepping into the ring with Jake Paul, a polarizing figure who could bring in a younger audience. In that sense, Tyson wasn't just a fighter, he was a savvy businessman, ensuring that his final fight would be a spectacle worth remembering. In the aftermath of the fight, Evander Holyfield threw his hat into the ring, expressing interest in a rematch with Tyson. For fans of boxing history, this was a tantalizing prospect. Tyson and Holyfield's rivalry is the stuff of legends, marked by some of the most infamous moments in sports, including the infamous ear-biting incident. The fans wanted "I love you, brother," but the trilogy is our friendship. Tyson shut the door on that idea quickly. He made it clear that his fight with Jake Paul was his last. This wasn't a decision made lightly. Tyson had nothing left to prove, and stepping back into the ring with Holyfield would have been more about nostalgia than meaningful competition. His refusal to entertain the idea shows a level of self-awareness and maturity that many fighters struggle to achieve. Tyson understood that his time in the ring was over, and he was ready to move on.
Every criticism, every take was very valid, and now we got to see it, and now we can move on. I think Jake, to a degree, was in a lose-lose situation. He knocks him out in the first. Everyone says, this is murder, this is awful, this is disgusting. He knocks him out in the middle, same thing. He even knocks him out in the end, they'll say that. He goes the distance, they'll say, oh, he sucks, or oh, he carried him. And more on that.
As Tyson officially retires from boxing, his record ends with a series of losses. For someone as iconic as Tyson, it's a tough pill to swallow. The man who once dominated the heavyweight division with an almost mythical aura of invincibility now leaves the sport with a less than stellar record in his final years. But records don't tell the full story, especially when it comes to someone like Mike Tyson. Tyson's legacy isn't defined by his wins and losses, it's defined by the impact he had on the sport. He wasn't just a boxer, he was a phenomenon. phenomenon. His speed, power, and ferocity changed the way people thought about heavyweight boxing. He became a cultural icon, transcending the sport in a way few athletes ever do. The Jake Paul fight, while far from Tyson's prime, is still a testament to his spirit. At 58 years old, after decades of physical and emotional wear and tear, Tyson stepped into the ring and went 8 rounds with a man half his age. That alone is an achievement. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about proving to himself and the world that he could still do it.
I think Jake carried him. I think Jake didn't want to knock him out. I'm not sure if he could have, but he definitely took his foot off the gas last couple rounds for sure. And ultimately, I'm okay with that. I predicted a Jake Paul decision. I thought it would be a little bit more competitive to get to the decision, but ultimately I'm okay with that.
For Tyson, walking away from boxing isn't just a career decision. It's the closing of a chapter that has defined most of his life. Boxing gave him fame, fortune, and purpose, but it also took a toll on his body and mind. Stepping away is bittersweet. On one hand, he can finally rest, free from the physical and mental demands of the sport. On the other hand, it's hard to let go of something that has been such a central part of his identity. The fight with Jake Paul also secured Tyson's financial future. While his record might not reflect the dominance of his earlier years, his ability to draw an audience remains unmatched. The revenue generated from the fight ensures that Tyson can enjoy his retirement in comfort, free from the financial struggles that plagued him in the past.
Rounds. Jake Paul apparently is getting $40 million. Mike Tyson only getting $20 million. I'm shocked at that. The most famous boxer alive is getting a smaller piece of the pie. I mean, they're the reported figures, but I hope that's not true. Tyson deserves an equal half of this pie, in my opinion. He's the reason they're selling out this stadium, right? He's the reason why a lot of...
The footage of Mike Tyson in his corner, gasping for air and visibly spent, serves as a poignant reminder of the extraordinary physical and emotional toll his final fight took on him. It's not a scene we're accustomed to associating with a fighter of Tyson's legendary status. The fight itself may not have been a display of Tyson's prime abilities, but it was a testament to his resilience and spirit. His determination to complete all 8 rounds, despite the visible signs of exhaustion and injury, underscored his refusal to quit, even when the odds were stacked against him. It wasn't about perfection or domination, it was about grit and heart. Jake Paul's post-fight antics, including mocking Tyson and claiming he had given the former champion a boxing lesson, tarnished what could have been a moment of mutual respect. Instead of acknowledging the courage and effort Tyson displayed, Paul used the opportunity to boost his own image. His inability to knock out a man over 20 years his senior, who was battling injuries and fatigue, made his boasting ring hollow. In the end, Tyson's place in boxing history remains unshaken. This fight, while imperfect, is a symbol of his determination to fight until the very end. It showed that even in his 50s, Tyson still carried the heart of a champion. If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe. More videos are on screen now.